Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and I hope that you all must be doing great. So let's start with the analysis video for the 11th of August 2023. So Prime Minister finally speaks on Manipur. So he says that peace will be restored in the state and that has been an assurance given by him to Lok Sabha. So finally, as it was being demanded by the opposition parties that Prime Minister needs to speak on Manipur, and they were obviously not allowing the parliament to function. So apart from this, we see that government also wins the no confidence motion. So कल भी हमने इसके बारे में discuss किया था कि despite knowing कि obviously government would be winning it, and उसके बाद भी it is being introduced. So this is one thing. So what is the reason you need to you can connect this with GS4 ethics. We're still following the procedure and जो भी चीज है no matter ki kya decision रहने वाला है. So Modi, he asked the opposition to try again in 2028, and that shows his confidence and his clarity. So many of the problems that had flared up in Manipur had their origin during the Congress regime. So these are some of the political things that were raised. Then bill seeks to remove CGI from the panel that picks the chief election commissioners and the election commissioners. So in a controversial move, Union government on Thursday, it has introduced a bill that would be removing CGI from the panel, which basically the committee that is there to select the chief election commissioner. So the amendment is that Chief Justice of India would be removed from that particular committee. So instead of CGI, three-member panel would now have a union cabinet minister besides leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha and prime minister who would be heading it. So that is going to be one of the change. And change क्या होने वाला है, firstly that is important, वो पता होना चाहिए. इसके अलावा now desirability of this change comes under question. The chief election commissioner and other election commissioners, this bill was introduced by the law minister, and opposition was quick to point out that this will put a question mark on the neutrality of the election commission. As the selection panel, it would effectively have two members of the BJP, and that would be prime minister and the cabinet minister. So this is basically will be looking and understanding at the objective analysis. See, earlier CGI was a member, but instead of CGI, now we'll be having a cabinet minister. So basically, you can say more of political persons would be a part of the selection committee, apart from the opposition in the Lok Sabha and the prime minister. So neutrality of the functioning of the chief election commission, the commissioner, the members of the election commission of India would now come under question. So that is, we can say, one of the points that has been also raised by the opposition. So police chief का कहना ये है कि जो गुरुग्राम में violence देखी गई, it was planned in advance or not, there is like no clear evidence behind that. So Gurugram Police Commissioner said that the interrogation of the accused arrested in connection with the communal clashes in the city did not suggest that this violence was planned in advance. Now, after we are seeing कि जिस level की violence देखी गई है, and उसके after effects में what has been the government steps या relief measures की आप बात करें, या what steps government has taken, the administration has taken in order to again restore status quo and ensure peace exists in the state, and it is not allowed to spread in the surrounding union territory or the surrounding of the neighboring states of Haryana. So like obviously इस violence का impact हर dimension पे हुआ है. जो lower level पे जो workers थे, Muslim community थी, they are not being allowed to work, they are not being allowed to even enter and stay. So situation obviously local level पे, ground level पे बहुत different है, and again it is like अभी तक it is very, we can say, dangerous अभी तक. Then Indian GPS Navik to be linked to the Aadhaar enrollment devices. So Navik of Indian Constellation की बात कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे, Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System, उसको we also call it Navik, which is navigation and navigation with the Indian constellation. So 7 satellite system hai that makes up India's version of the American GPS. Like America may we have the GPS, which is used for location and the positioning services. So India ka system jo hai that is called Navic. So Navic को integrate किया जाएगा with the Aadhaar enrolled devices across the country, and department has facilitated the successful conduct of the field trials किए जा चुके हैं. It is providing technical expertise in the finalization of this procurement specification of the devices. And currently, Aadhaar enrollment kits that are used to collect and verify the personal details, they are linked to GPS. So cloudburst leads to house collapse. It is happened in the Sirmaur district. And again, we are seeing this is the impact of climate change, जो frequency है, जो number of instances है, or intensity of cloudburst. That is severing. So disaster management becomes very important, and even when we're talking about sustainable urbanization या sustainable construction activities and the process that we follow. So that is very important. And now iske niche you need to know about ki kya sustainable practices that we can adopt. So Haryana violence, as we were talking about in the beginning also, कि one of the aftermath steps जो government ने लिए है, जो administration ने लिए है, that is demolition of the illegal structures. मतलब बोला ये जा रहा है कि illegal structures are being demolished, but actually ground level पे again लोगों का कहना ये है कि again through this exercise also demolition of the structures एक particular community को target किया जा रहा है. So abandoning the rule of law for bulldozer justice, it is the first step towards an authoritarian society where ensuring a person's safety, life, and liberty will be at the whims and fancies of state officials. So in a way, उसी चीज को थोड़ा और complex तरीके से लिखा हुआ है कि you're targeting one particular community and another so-called bulldozer justice. कि by raising down these structures, do you think justice would be served? So चाहे आप बोलो कि लीगल स्ट्रक्चर है, कोई भी स्ट्रक्चर हो, मतलब डिमोलिशन से हाउ कैन यू से कि जस्टिस वुड बी सर्व्ड. सो ब्रेकिंग द रूल ऑफ लॉ एक अनदर thing that is happening simultaneously. And again state officials and जो यहाँ पे की term use किए गए हैं authoritarian society की तरफ, this is one of the indications which is showing more of authoritarian societies establishment, because we are compromising with the people's safety, life, and liberty, and that would be according to the whims and fancies of the state officials. So a form of frontier justice. So at the end of the day, everyone knows that what is happening is not a dispute over the municipal law, zoning regulations, and unauthorized structures. It is clear that what is happening is state-sanctioned collective punishment, which is predominantly targeted against specific communities. So instead of engaging the machinery of law enforcement and justice, which is what states bound by the rule of law do, obviously, अगर मतलब ये बोला जा रहा है कि जो स्टेट्स फॉलो करती हैं रूल ऑफ लॉ को, they would be using the law enforcement agencies and the justice machinery instead of this so-called bulldozer justice. So the state prefers to met out a form of frontier justice, enforcing order through violence and itself becoming the lawbreaker. So yesterday we had the monetary policy committee meeting, and RBI का जो decision था that was the repo rate was kept unchanged. So RBI's inflation fighting metal, it will be tested in the months ahead. So आने वाले time में obviously थोड़ी situation और we can say it would be of much more concern because inflation is expected it would be increasing. तो आने वाले time में थोड़ा challenging task होने वाला है for RBI. So latest decision RBI MPC का to leave its policy rate unchanged. It is a calculated risk taken by the rate setting panel, especially when we are seeing this is viewed in light of the upward revision of its inflation forecast. मतलब inflation forecast has been revised upward डिस्पाइट दैट रेपो रेट को अनचेंज रखा गया एंड साथ ही साथ अगर हम ग्लोबल सिनेरियो से भी इस चीज को लिंक करें इंटरेस्ट रेट डिफरेंशियल की हम बात करते हैं तो कहीं ना कहीं दैट आल्सो प्लेज वन ऑफ द इम्पोर्टेंट रोल्स इन टर्म्स ऑफ अट्रैक्टिंग द फॉरेन पोर्टफोलियो इन्वेस्टमेंट्स या इवन एफडीआई टू दैट मैटर मतलब एफडीआई की बातें करेंगे एफपीआई की हम बात करेंगे यहाँ पे सो इंटरेस्ट रेट डिफरेंशियल जो हम बात करें अगर वहां पे गैप ज्यादा हो जाएगा मतलब जो इंटरेस्ट रेट एग्जिस्ट करता है डेवलप्ड वर्ल्ड में या फॉर दैट मैटर अगर हम यहाँ पे कंसिडर करें द केस बिटवीन इंडिया एंड द यूएसए तो अगर यूएसए में और इंडिया के बीच में जो इंटरेस्ट रेट डिफरेंशियल में अगर गैप ज्यादा हो जाएगा यूएसए में इंटरेस्ट रेट हाइक किया गया है उनका पॉलिसी रेट को इंक्रीज किया गया है इंडिया में इट हैज बीन केप्ट अनचेंज तो आने वाले टाइम में एक वो प्रेशर भी इंक्रीज हो जाएगा आरबीआई के ऊपर कि आपको इंटरेस्ट रेट डिफरेंशियल को भी जो गैप है उसको कम से कम रखना है सो अगर इंटरेस्ट रेट यूएसए में ज्यादा है तो ऑब्वियसली एफपीआई यूएसए में ज्यादा इन्वेस्ट करेंगे एंड इंडिया से दे वुड बी विड्रॉइंग आउट दे वुड बी एग्जिटिंग तो वो कहीं ना कहीं रुपी के ऊपर भी एडिशनल प्रेशर इम्पोज करेगा एंड साथ ही साथ हमने ये भी देखा कि जो इन्फ्लेशन का फोरकास्ट है वो भी अपवर्ड रिवाइज किया गया है तो उसके बाद भी आपने रेपो रेट को अनचेंज रखा तो आने वाले टाइम में इट इज अगेन गोइंग टू बी वेरी चैलेंजिंग टास्क फॉर आरबीआई So in a note to the MPC's stance क्या है तो RBI it separately and temporarily it has imposed incremental 10% increase in the cash reserve ratio the banks they must maintain तो जो CRR है the cash reserve ratio जो banks को maintain करना पड़ेगा तो incremental 10% increase और किया गया है with a view to draining some of the surplus liquidity in the banking system that could spur the prices so liquidity अगर कम हो जाएगी तो prices इतना इंक्रीज नहीं हो पाएंगे बिकॉज अगर लिक्विडिटी ज्यादा होती है तो इन्फ्लेशन भी इंक्रीज होती है सो अगर सीआरआर को सपोज इंक्रीज किया गया है तो सीआरआर बेसिकली यू नीड टू बी क्लियर विद द आइडिया बिहाइंड दैट कि सम अमाउंट ऑफ टाइम डिपॉजिट लाइबिलिटीज जो है बैंक्स को अपने पास सॉरी दे हैव टू मेंटेन इट विद द आरबीआई तो उसके थ्रू अगर सीआरआर इंक्रीज हुआ है तो हायर अमाउंट उनको आरबीआई के साथ मेंटेन करना पड़ेगा तो वो कहीं ना कहीं लिक्विडिटी reduce करेगा with the banks. So given the MPC's sanguine outlook on the economic growth, it has not only retained its forecast for the GDP to expand by 6.5% in real terms, but also stuck by its June projections for growth in each of the 4 quarters, inflation shock notwithstanding. So to be sure, MPC has flagged several risks to the inflation outlook. सो अनइवन रेनफॉल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन है एक वो चैलेंज है उसकी वजह से इन्फ्लेशन इंक्रीज हो सकती है एंड रीसेंट अपटिक जो क्रूड ऑयल प्राइसेस भी और ज़्यादा एक्सपेंसिव हो गए हैं एंटरप्राइजेस एंटरप्राइजेस होल्ड बाय द आरबीआई दे आल्सो एक्सपेक्ट कि आउटपुट प्राइसेस भी आने वाले टाइम में इंक्रीज होंगे सो दीज आर सम ऑफ द चैलेंजेस so it is important to align inflation to the target level ensure that inflation expectations and they are also well anchored मतलब अगर inflation तो increase होने के chances है ही हैं अगर inflation expectations भी increase होंगे तो inflation और ज़्यादा increase हो सकती है तो how quickly policy makers actually they walk the talk and intercede in the coming months it will determine their inflation fighting mettle. So when we talk about the situation in Myanmar, so what has been India's stance here, India ki policy? So this is obviously one of the important topics from the perspective of the situation in Myanmar impacts the security situation in the Northeast and obviously impacts our relations with China as well. So Indian policy at the onset of COVID-19 pandemic and the coup that happened in Myanmar, India took a proactive approach by providing food and vaccine assistance that we did. However, plight of Myanmarese people, it seems to have faded from the memory with accusations of instigating violence in the Manipur, replacing it. So jab se we are seeing ethnic violence that has happened in Manipur, so obviously that has become a priority over whatever the situation is there in Manipur. So in Myanmar, sorry. So communities along the border, they have already defied the Home Ministry by providing shelter to the refugees. तो कहीं ना कहीं even एक foreign angle भी है to the violence that has occurred in Manipur. उसके अलावा even वॉयलेंस की वजह से भी जो बिकॉज इट्स अ बॉर्डर स्टेट, तो वहां पे भी सिचुएशन इन म्यांमार दैट इज आल्सो वॉलेटाइल एंड इट इज अनस्टेबल, तो वो भी कहीं ना कहीं थोड़ा उसको और फ्यूल अप कर सकता है सिचुएशन को. एंड so India's official rhetoric on the commitment to democracy in Myanmar, it is in contrast with its policy framed through the lens of its security concerns in Northeast India and relations with China. Like example यहाँ पे है India's announcement of the Serang, this railway project which is near the Myanmar border under India's Act East policy. This aims to counter China's railway access in Myanmar through Yunnan and the ambitious China-Myanmar economic corridor. So from the perspective of security of the Northeast and relations with China, जो हमारे policy decisions हैं वो accordingly vary करते हैं. So that is there, and उसका example ये दिया गया है railway project जो इंडिया ने launch किया है, because there is also because China Myanmar economic corridor है and China की भी जो railway access है obviously वो network expand नहीं होना चाहिए, because again that would be also acting like a security threat to India. So जो हमारा official stance है, that is obviously we support democracy in Myanmar, and इसके अलावा obviously refugee influx, that is another dimension. So India's policy options in Myanmar, they are challenging but not limited. So relaxation of Ms. Suu Kyi's prison sentence, it may provide an opportunity for India to engage with her and with the pro-democracy actors as well. Additionally, government and media must avoid the blanket securitization and profiling of incoming refugees, and many of whom have ties of the kinship in India also. So this approach is essential to prevent further violence and foster an environment of care and compassion. So China's deflation, ये हमने कल देखा था, the data that was there yesterday. So how it is a cause of concern, global impact क्या होगा, and again we'll be understanding it specifically in the context of the impact on India also. So firstly, तो कल भी मैंने ये क्वेश्चन रेज किया था, डिफ्लेशन, इन्फ्लेशन, डिसइन्फ्लेशन, इन तीनों के बीच में क्लैरिटी होना इम्पोर्टेंट है. तो व्हेन आई से inflation and deflation, so deflation is opposite of inflation. So inflation में the general prices increase, deflation में the general prices they fall, and disinflation में inflation होता है but slower rate पे prices increase हो रहे होते हैं. So that is the basic difference between these three terms. So सबसे पहले समझेंगे चाइना में why we are seeing actually deflation, reasons क्या हैं, and फॉलिंग डिमांड क्या रोल प्ले करती है पूरे सिनेरियो में, एंड जो ग्लोबली वी आर सीइंग इन्फ्लेशन कंसर्न्स एग्जिस्ट करते हैं, व्हाट आर द फैक्टर्स अगेन जो चाइना की डिफ्लेशनरी ट्रेंड को कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहे हैं, एंड अगेन डिफ्लेशन कैसे इम्पैक्ट करेगी कंज्यूमर बिहेवियर को, एंड क्या ये पोटेंशियली हिंडर कर सकती है इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ इन चाइना और नॉट, एंड अगेन ग्लोबली भी क्या ये इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ को हिंडर करेगी कि नहीं, गिवन ऑलरेडी वी आर हैविंग दी challenge of global inflation, which is still not under, I would say, under a comfortable territory as of now when we're talking about the global picture. So consumer prices in China, they have declined for the first time in over 2 years in July. So CPI has declined 0.3% in July. And what is deflation? तो ये मैं आपको बता चुकी हूँ. You can go through it. Why is it a worry? मतलब why is it a cause of concern? So many economists, they believe that deflation, it is a sign of falling demand for the goods and services. मतलब supply है goods and services का जितना required है, but अगर demand कम हो रही है तो prices भी fall होंगे. तो ये कहीं ना कहीं ये show करता है कि demand is weakening in the economy, and इट कैन ऑल्सो लीड टू स्लो डाउन इन द इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ ऑल्सो, क्योंकि अगर डिमांड ही नहीं होगी, आप कितना भी प्रोडक्शन कर लो, एक पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम के बाद थिंग्स वुड स्टार्ट piling up. So according to experts, जो demand है goods and services की, it is a driver of economic growth. So falling prices, it can also push the buyers to postpone their purchases, expecting कि आने वाले टाइम में और prices fall हो सकते हैं, तो उससे और negative impact होगा on the demand. So this in turn, it can further dampen the demand in the economy. And certain degree of inflation, it is believed that it is necessary for the full utilization of resources in an economy. मतलब एक general belief है कि a certain amount of inflation, it have a positive impact, and that is important for good and healthy functioning of the economic growth. So that is the thing. And ऑब्वियसली डिफ्लेशन की वजह से बिजनेस लॉसेस भी हो सकते हैं, लोअर ग्रोथ हो सकती है, बिकॉज कॉस्ट इट रिमेन्स स्टिकी, एंड इट कैन ऑल्सो मेस अप द क्रेडिट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स ऑल्सो, एज द बोरोवर्स दे विल हैव टू पे बैक, एंड रियल टर्म्स में जो एक्चुअल अमाउंट बोरोवर्स को पे बैक करना पड़ेगा वो ज्यादा होगा. So these economists, they have recommended कि जो Chinese government है, Chinese central bank है, they should take necessary steps to boost demand in the economy. So major focus demand boost करने पे होना चाहिए when you talk about the China's economy. Then again, there is another school of thought of group of economists जिनका मानना ये कि deflation एक कोई problem नहीं है. So including the US and China in the past, economists का मानना ये है कि they have experienced deflation during times of rapid economic growth also. मतलब अभी तक जो हम बात कर रहे थे, that was another school of thought जिनका मानना ये है कि deflation is a cause of concern. There is another school of thought, another group of economists जिनका मानना ये है कि deflation is not a problem. And पहले भी हमने ऐसा देखा है, जब rapid economic growth हुई है तो उस टाइम पीरियड के दौरान भी deflation देखी गई है. So even a country like Japan की हम बात करें, which has been plagued by persistent deflation for years, actually that has witnessed a rise in per capita real income levels during the era of deflation. तो यहाँ भी हम पहले जैसे बात कर रहे थे कि अगर deflation हो रही है तो कहीं ना कहीं it is weakening of the demand. So weakening of the demand हो रहा है तो वो negatively impact करेगा economic growth के. But अगर हम real लाइफ एग्जाम्पल के थ्रू समझे, जापान का केस ले, तो जापान में हमने देखा कि परसिस्टेंटली काफी सालों तक डिफ्लेशन देखा गया, बट उसके बाद भी वी आर सीइंग कि पर कैपिटा रियल इनकम जो है वो इंक्रीज हुई है ड्यूरिंग दिस एरा ऑफ डिफ्लेशन इन जापान. सो अब आपको समझना पड़ेगा कि अगर इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ भी हो रही है, पर कैपिटा इनकम भी इंक्रीज हो रही है, मतलब थिंग्स आर मूविंग इन अ पॉजिटिव मैनर, बट स्टिल डिफ्लेशन हो रही है, तो अब ये समझना इंपॉर्टेंट है डिफ्लेशन हो क्यों रही है. सो जापान के केस में ऐसे similar types of cases में ये देखा गया कि deflation is a result of rise in the supply of the goods and services that outpaces the rate of money supply growth. So ये है समझने वाली चीज, the reason behind deflation, कि जो supply of goods and services है वो इतना ज्यादा हो गया कि जो rate of money supply है that is less compared to the supply of goods and services जितना ज्यादा हो रहा है, तो demand ऑटोमेटिकली थोड़ी कम हो जाती है. तो इसलिए वी कैन से कि प्राइसेस फॉल हो जाते हैं, क्योंकि डिमांड से ज्यादा अगर सप्लाई होगा तो प्राइसेस नेचुरली फॉल होंगे. So however, deflation, it can also be a sign of economic turmoil also. मतलब it can go either of the way. मतलब it can be a positive thing also, negative also. So during times of economic crisis, spending by individuals, it can drop temporarily as they become more cautious. So sometimes deflation in the official price indicators, it can also be a sign of process of reallocation of the resources. So spending on goods whose prices they are captured by the official indicators, it may drop, while spending on other goods, it may even increase also. So mixed impact हो सकता है. So these economists, they argue that deflation need not cause consumers to postpone the purchases as widely it is being believed. And it is not the price that determines the consumer demand for goods and services, but it is rather consumer demand जो prices determine करता है. मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि जो प्राइजेस एग्जिस्ट करेंगे मार्केट में, सपोज अगर प्राइजेस फॉल हो रहे हैं तो कंज्यूमर ये सोचेंगे आने वाले टाइम में प्राइजेस और फॉल होंगे, तो उसके अकॉर्डिंग डिमांड होगी. ऐसा नहीं है, रादर डिमांड कितनी है वो इन्फ्लुएंस करेगा कि प्राइस कितना होगा मार्केट में। सो डायरेक्शन ऑफ कॉजेशन इट रन्स फ्रॉम कंज्यूमर डिमांड जितनी होगी देन विल बी डिसाइडिंग कितना प्राइसेस होगा मार्केट में, रादर देन द रिवर्स। सो मोर ओवर जो डिफ्लेशन है इट नॉट कॉज सस्टेन्ड बिजनेस लॉसेस नहीं होंगे डिफ्लेशन की वजह से, सिंस बिजनेसेस दे कैन ऑल्सो एडजस्ट what they are paying for their inputs according to what their customers they are willing to pay for their goods and services, so इसको adjust किया जा सकता है। So अब क्वेश्चन आता है चाइना क्यों एक्सपीरियंस कर रहा है डिफ्लेशन। सो चाइना इज एक्सपीरियंसिंग दिस एट अ टाइम व्हेन द पीपल्स बैंक ऑफ चाइना, और चाइना का जो सेंट्रल बैंक है जिसको हम पीपल्स बैंक ऑफ चाइना बोलते हैं, इट कंटिन्यूज टू कीप द इंटरेस्ट रेट्स लो टू बूस्ट द डिमांड इन द इकोनॉमी। सो दिस इज वन ऑफ द रीजंस बिहाइंड डिफ्लेशन की जो इंटरेस्ट रेट्स है वो बहुत लो है चाइना में, सो दैट जो डिमांड है उसको एक बूस्ट मिले। एंड डिमांड को बूस्ट कैसे मिलेगा, अगर इंटरेस्ट रेट लो है तो ऑब्वियसली इन्वेस्टमेंट को वो अट्रैक्ट करेगा, इन्वेस्टमेंट अट्रैक्ट होगी तो देयर वुड बी मोर प्रोडक्शन ऑफ गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज, प्रोडक्शन में ऑब्वियसली एम्प्लॉयमेंट इंक्रीज होगी, एम्प्लॉयमेंट इंक्रीज होगी तो लोगों की इनकम इंक्रीज होगी एंड अकॉर्डिंगली डिमांड भी लोग इंक्रीज करेंगे। सो दिस इज इन कॉन्ट्रास्ट टू अदर सेंट्रल बैंक्स। ग्लोबली हम यही देख रहे हैं कि इन्फ्लेशन से फाइट कर रहे हैं, तो उसके लिए ग्लोबली सेंट्रल बैंक जो इंटरेस्ट रेट इंक्रीज कर रहे हैं, पर द सिचुएशन इज ऑपोजिट इन केस ऑफ चाइना। सो चाइना के केस में द रीजन इट माइट नॉट बी लैक ऑफ लिक्विडिटी बट समथिंग मोर फंडामेंटल। सो अगर वी डू अ प्रॉपर स्टडी वी गो इनटू द डिटेल्स of the Chinese money supply and the monetary transmission that can help us come to a definite conclusion कि actually reason है क्या behind deflation. So it should be noted कि Chinese economy it has been experiencing turmoil even before pandemic also. Property sector की अगर हम बात करें which contributes to a share of Chinese GDP, the Chinese policymakers they have been trying to bring about soft landing of their economy. So credit booms like the one that was witnessed in China, it can cause misallocation of resources and the burst it can involve a fall in a broader prices. So will the federal fund hike, interest rate hike, impact the developing countries' debt or not? So how will this 21-year high federal funds rate affect the global economies? And kya developing countries, are they prepared for the consequences behind this federal fund rate increase? So recently concluded Federal Open Market Committee meeting जो हुई that targeted the federal funds rate, it was raised by 25 basis points, and this is at the 21-year high, surpassing the levels that existed in 2001. So Fed Reserve President Jerome Powell addressed the press conference and explained कि जो decision था that was aimed at reducing the inflation to 2%. So USA में inflation target is 2%. So despite interest rate hike करने के बाद भी he pointed out कि employment numbers they have been on the rise. मतलब ऑल्दो ये माना जाता है कि इंटरेस्ट रेट इंक्रीज होगा तो एम्प्लॉयमेंट कम होगी, बट इसके बाद भी एम्प्लॉयमेंट नंबर्स आर राइजिंग, सो दैट इज समथिंग पॉजिटिव। सो व्हाट इज फेडरल फंड्स रेट, होता क्या है? सो इट इज अ रेट विच इज करंटली सेट बिटवीन 5.25 to 5.5%. So it plays important role in the economy as it is determining lending rates amongst the banks. So federal fund rate जो है वो डिसाइड करता है कि बैंक का जो lending rate होगा लोन्स पे वो कितना इंटरेस्ट रेट पे रहेगा। So global financial crisis के बाद the rates they were near around zero until 2015. So उस point of time पे during the global financial crisis of 2008-9, this was the situation कि federal fund rate they were at almost zero level. So with the pandemic, अगर हम बात करें COVID-19 pandemic के time की, तो rates they even again dropped to near zero ही बोल सकते हैं, 0.05%. So since 2022, there has been steady increase in the rate, leading to concerns about the world economy's ability to withstand such a sharp rise of more than 450 basis points within 1 year. So within 1 year, we have seen such a huge jump or increase in this federal fund rate. So Federal Reserve intervenes in the markets through the bond purchases or sales to maintain targeted rate change. So even government intervention भी देखा गया, मतलब central bank का intervention. So what consequences would it have on rest of the world? Now इसका globally क्या impact होगा? जैसे Fed fund rates change हो रहे हैं तो उसका कुछ global impact भी होता है। So the rest of the world, it faces a different situation compared to the green shoots of growth which is seen in US economy. They are yet to come out of the pandemic and they're battling with growing debt servicing concerns. So specifically developing countries की अगर हम बात करें तो they're still fighting against the impacts जो भी रहे COVID-19 के, they're still recovering out. And जो major global concern है, even हम अगर global south की भी बात करें, countries of African continent की भी अगर हम बात करें तो we're still seeing कि जो one of the major concerns है, that is growing debt servicing concerns. मतलब repaying of the debt is one of the major concerns. So large-scale expansion of balance sheets of the advanced countries' central banks. Since the global financial crisis, that has reduced the interest rates to abysmally low levels. And this has facilitated carry trade, with the agents borrowing in dollars and investing in emerging markets to benefit from the interest rate margins due to higher interest rates in developing countries. So ये जो मैं interest rate differentials की बात कर रही थी, that has been one of the major attractions क्योंकि developing countries में जो interest rate है, that is comparatively higher to the interest rate in the USA क्योंकि federal fund rate जो है after the global financial crisis वो lower level पे चल रहा है. So this is one thing. And between 2011 and 2016 अगर हम बात करें तो external debt stocks in the low and the middle income countries, that has doubled. So external debt जो है developing countries का, जो basically the ones which lie in the category of low and middle income countries, उनका debt almost double हो गया between 2011 and 2016. So that has reached 181.1% of their GDP levels. And आने वाले टाइम में it is expected कि it would be exceeding even 200% of their GDP. So this is going to be one of the global financial concerns. So developing world में basically जो non-financial corporations थे, उन्होंने इसका फायदा उठाया of the low global interest rates to borrow cheaply. And जो easy capital availability थी, वो access कर पाए, उन्होंने उसका leverage उठाया. So with the rising interest rates, currency depreciation, unhedged dollar debts, it could pose serious problems for these corporations. So corporates पे क्या impact होगा of this rate hike? So international economy में there has been substantial increase in the private non-guaranteed debt. So non-guaranteed debt increase हुई है, which is again very risky, which is taken by the corporations. So repaying that debt is again one of the major concerns. So government, they continue to be important borrowers, but जो corporates हैं, private sector ने debt लिया है, that is non-guaranteed. So as interest rate advanced countries में that is increasing, so foreign investors जो हैं, they may abandon government securities in developing economies. जो मैं बात कर रही थी कि अगर यूएसए में इंटरेस्ट रेट ज्यादा रहेगा, जो उनका सेंट्रल बैंक फेड रिजर्व है, दे आर इंक्रीजिंग द इंटरेस्ट रेट, तो ऑब्वियसली इन्वेस्टर्स वही अपना पैसा इन्वेस्ट करेंगे जहाँ पे उनको ज्यादा रिटर्न्स मिलेंगे. तो उसकी वजह से अगेन करेंसी के ऊपर जो प्रेशर है, दैट वुड इंक्रीज, दैट इट विल डेप्रिशिएट. एंड जो फॉरेन इन्वेस्टर्स हैं, वो गवर्नमेंट सिक्योरिटीज को सेल करके they will be moving out of the developing economies. So this would lead to currency depreciation, increased borrowing cost at the same time. So जो debt servicing concerns हैं, ये इससे और ज़्यादा increase हो सकते हैं for the developing countries. So World Bank का जो recent debt report था, it reveals कि जो poorest countries की borrowing है through the International Development Association spend 10% of their export earnings on servicing debt, which is one of the highest since 2000 levels. So जो उनकी export की earnings है, उनका 10% चला जाता है in servicing that particular debt. So climate goals, they are also affected due to the financial constraints at the same time. क्योंकि global financial debt servicing में अगर हमें इतने concerns देखने को मिल रहे हैं, that has become a challenge. And we are, we can say almost reaching some kind of a risky situation. तो climate goals को आप कैसे achieve करोगे, क्योंकि वहाँ पे भी हम climate finance की बात करते हैं as a challenge. So क्या किया जाना चाहिए? What is the solution? So collective effort definitely that is needed in order to bring reforms and implement them by the international financial system, addressing जो भी ये asymmetries के बारे में हमने बात करी. So it is indeed a fact कि जो no great wall of China, it can resist the power of monetary policy decisions of the US Fed Reserve. and US monetary policy seems to be bothered only about जो domestic concerns हैं, and globally चाहे कुछ भी impact हो तो obviously firstly उनका concern है domestic economy concerns, and volatile global economy situation है, volatility increase हो रही है, and we are seeing at the same time falling health and education infrastructure on the one hand, and जो climate vulnerabilities हैं they are increasing on the other. So massive scaling up of the contingency financing for the needy countries that is needed. We need expansion of affordable long-term financing for development that is required, addressing growing concerns of developing country debt. So this is a very, very important article, and I hope जो मैंने समझाने की कोशिश करी, you get the point. So Supreme Court says कि Jammu and Kashmir it surrendered its sovereignty to India absolutely and completely. आप ये नहीं बोल सकते हो बाद में कि आर्टिकल 370 को क्यों अबॉलिश किया गया, या इट इज हैविंग समथिंग वेरी स्पेशल प्रोविजंस इन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ, जब आप बात करो गवर्निंग या फिर इवन एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, बट यू कांट से कि इट इज समथिंग टेरिटरी विच इज आउटसाइड इंडिया, या आप उसको उस टर्म्स में थोड़ा डिफरेंट ट्रीट करोगे. दैट इज नॉट द केस. व्हेन इट बेसिकली surrendered its sovereignty, तो उसका मतलब ये है that has been done in a absolutely and in a complete manner. So CJ says कि limitations जो भी place की गई on the legislative power of the parliament, that cannot be construed to mean कि Jammu and Kashmir unlike other princely states जो थी they have retained its sovereignty. So sovereignty भी surrender की गई है. अगर आप ये बोल रहे हो कि जो लेजिस्लेटिव पावर्स हैं वो डिफरेंट रही फॉर जम्मू एंड कश्मीर लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबली, तो आप उसको एक डिफरेंट तरीके से ट्रीट करोगे. अगर सोवरेनिटी गिव अप करी है, सरेंडर करी है इंडिया को, तो इट मीन्स कि आप उसको इक्वल टर्म्स में ही ट्रीट करोगे. सो कोई इस पे ऐसा कोई कंडीशनल लिमिटेशंस नहीं इम्पोज की गई थी. So India, Japan, they are studying ways to restart trilateral cooperation with Sri Lanka. So इस पे already question आ चुका है मेंस में कि इंडिया ने क्या steps लिए हैं to help Sri Lanka during their economic crisis. And one of them is this, obviously, with Japan, we have taken certain measures, developmental measures. So this was halted in between. So we are again having talks to restart this trilateral cooperation for development and restoration of Sri Lanka. So possible collaborations क्या हो सकते हैं infrastructure और investment करने के लिए, and जो भी lessons हमने सीखे पहले, obviously that needs to be implemented. We can't repeat the same mistake. Both the countries had come to the island nation's rescue during last year crisis. So India and Japan, they collectively came forward. So more than 2 years after Sri Lanka, it cancelled the joint India-Japan MOU for the East Container Terminal project in Colombo, and the three countries, they are studying ways to again restarting it. So both the countries offered assistance to Sri Lanka with debt restructuring process, and so जो प्रोजेक्ट्स जॉइंटली इंडिया और जापान के द्वारा इम्प्लीमेंट किए जाने चाहिए थे, उन पे कोई प्रोग्रेस नहीं हुई ड्यू टू सेवरल रीजंस, बट दैट शुड नॉट deter us in exploring new cooperation. Obviously that cannot stop us from changing things, from amending things accordingly. So again, artificial intelligence का क्या क्या practical applications हैं. So it will allow you to make a UPI payment using voice. So ethical usage of artificial intelligence is the main thing. मतलब जहाँ पे भी आप इसको implement कर रहे हो, use कर रहे हो, is it really ethical or not? So Monetary Policy Committee holds the repo rate, कोई changes नहीं किए गए. Inflation forecast जो था that has been lifted to 5.4% and जो growth view है that has been retained. So these are the major three outcomes. And जो majority है of the 5 MPC members, total 6 members हैं MPC में, आपको पूरा proper composition पता होना चाहिए. And जो majority थी 5 members की, they opted to stay focused on withdrawal of the accommodation to ensure कि inflation aligns with the target while supporting growth as well. So from 12th of August, banks को maintain करना पड़ेगा incremental CRR of 10%. So this is again to, reduce the liquidity so that inflation और कम हो सके. And CRR basic definition I've already explained to you क्या होता है. तो CRR की बात करें, SLR आपको पता होना चाहिए. So RBI is rightly cautious on inflation according to the SBI bank chief. एंड अगेन हमने देखा कि क्या चैलेंजेस हैं, मेन चैलेंजेस हैं आने वाले टाइम में फॉर इन्फ्लेशन. सो नॉर्थ ईस्ट इंडिया में जो स्पेशल इकोनॉमिक जोन्स हैं, दे आर येट टू स्टार्ट द ऑपरेशन. सो अराउंड 270 ऑपरेशनल SEZs इन इंडिया. दे हैव लॉग्ड the exports worth 79 lakh crore rupees since 2005. So a broader sense में if I talk about success of SEZ model in India क्या रहा है, and one of the important things is कि आप इसको compare करोगे with the China's model. So that is very very important for your understanding. Now again यहाँ पे भी मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी कमेटी का जो डिसीजन रहा उसके बारे में बात की जा रही है मिंट न्यूज पेपर में. So consumer price inflation और repo rate. Repo rate is that it has been maintained at 6.5%. हमने इसको 4% से increase करना start किया था. तो right now we have maintained status को. CPI is at 4.8. So this is for June 2023. So अब जो gap देख सकते हो that exists. So RBI has left its key rate unchanged considering several factors including inflation which it expects to rise in coming months. And so sooner or later we don't expect कि रेपो रेट को कम किया जाएगा. आने वाले टाइम में ये पॉसिबिलिटी जरूर हो सकती है कि रेपो रेट को इंक्रीज किया जा सकता है. सो स्टेटस को इसलिए मेंटेन किया गया कि आरबीआई थिंक्स कि आने वाले टाइम में इन्फ्लेशन इट वुड बी गोइंग टू एड अप टू द प्रेशर, फूड इन्फ्लेशन स्पेसिफिकली. सो इसलिए उसको कम नहीं किया गया और ना ही उसको इंक्रीज किया गया अभी. तो स्टेटस को ही मेंटेन रखा है एंड इट एक्सपेक्ट्स inflation to be higher than what was seen in June, primarily on account of spike in the vegetable prices led by tomatoes. So आने वाले टाइम में जो आरबीआई ये भी सोचता है कि सप्लाई डिसरप्शंस की वजह से एंड बिकॉज ऑफ द एडवर्स वेदर कंडीशंस इन्फ्लेशन इंक्रीज हो सकती है. सो होम लोन बोरोवर्स जो हैं, जो होम लोन लेना चाहते हैं, उनके ऊपर क्या इम्पैक्ट होगा ऑफ दिस डिसीजन. सो रेपो रेट इट इज अनचेंज एट 4%. आरबीआई स्टार्टेड रेजिंग इट टू कंट्रोल द हाई इन्फ्लेशन दैट हैड crept into the economy and it has been now maintained at 6.5%. So 1 basis point is 1/100th of a percentage. So this has led to home loan EMIs creeping up. तो obviously अगर interest rate increase किया जा रहा है तो home loan की जो EMIs हैं they would also turn out to be costly. तो home loan borrowers पे pressure increase हुआ है. Interest rates जो है home loans पे that have increased from 6.5 to 9%. तो आरबीआई का आने वाले टाइम में इन्फ्लेशन फोरकास्ट कैसा है? दिस हैव सीन कि दिस हैज बीन इंक्रीज्ड टू 5.4%. सो एक्सपेक्टेशंस ये इन्फ्लेशन वुड बी इंक्रीजिंग. सो आने वाले टाइम में इंटरेस्ट रेट्स भी इंक्रीज डेफिनेटली हो सकते हैं, बहुत हायर चांसेस हैं. सो व्हाई यू नीड टू रेज द रेट्स अमिड द सोरिंग फूड इन्फ्लेशन? So food items, they constitute about 2/5 of the weight in the CPI index, which is used to measure the retail inflation. So direction of food prices, they pretty much decides the direction of retail inflation भी क्या होगा. So RBI, it has no way of influencing food prices को आप influence नहीं कर सकते हो. So why you need to maintain the interest rates high? अगर इंटरेस्ट रेट चेंज करने का फूड इन्फ्लेशन पे कोई इम्पैक्ट नहीं है तो फिर भी आप क्यों रेपो रेट को हायर लेवल पे मेंटेन करोगे या उसको क्यों इंक्रीज करोगे? Because people, they form their expectations of future inflation on the basis of direction of the food prices. So hence it makes sense for a central bank to start raising the rates when there is danger of high food prices seeping into the overall inflation. मतलब you can't say कि फूड इन्फ्लेशन जो है कम्प्लीटली सेग्रीगेटेड है, उसका किसी चीज पे इम्पैक्ट ही नहीं हो रहा है, कंज्यूमर सेंटिमेंट्स पे कोई इम्पैक्ट नहीं हो रहा है, क्योंकि कंज्यूमर सेंटिमेंट्स भी अगर इन्फ्लेशन को भी एक्सपेक्ट कि आने वाले टाइम में इंक्रीज होंगे, एक्सपेक्टेशंस ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन रिमेन्स हायर, तो उसका डाइवर्स तरीके से ओवरऑल इन्फ्लेशन पे इम्पैक्ट होता है. तो उसी लिए रेपो रेट को इंक्रीज करना, हाई लेवल पे मेंटेन करना आरबीआई के लिए इम्पोर्टेंट हो जाता है. सो क्या ग्लोबल सिनेरियो इंडिया पे इम्पैक्ट कर रहा है? डेफिनेटली इम्पैक्ट कर रहा है. आपको ये समझना है पॉजिटिव इम्पैक्ट है, नेगेटिव है, किस तरीके से इम्पैक्ट कर रहा है. तो लास्ट फ्यू वीक्स में अगर हम देखें, यूएस फेड रिजर्व, जो यूएसए का सेंट्रल बैंक है, यूरोपियन सेंट्रल बैंक एंड बैंक ऑफ इंग्लैंड, सब ने अपना इंटरेस्ट रेट इंक्रीज किया है टू टैकल हाई इन्फ्लेशन. सो इंटरेस्ट रेट डिफरेंशियल के बारे में मैं ऑलरेडी बात कर चुकी हूँ, एंड वो भी कहीं ना कहीं अगर इंडिया इंटरेस्ट रेट इंक्रीज नहीं कर रहा है, बाकी फॉरेन कंट्रीज के सेंट्रल बैंक्स ने इंटरेस्ट रेट रेज किया है, तो ये भी कहीं ना कहीं हमारे ऊपर प्रेशर एडअप करता है टू इंक्रीज द रेपो रेट इन फ्यूचर. So they have also said कि they aren't done with raising the rates as yet. मतलब अभी इस लेवल पे आने के बाद भी जो कमाल की बात तो ये है कि आने वाले टाइम में और भी इंक्रीज कर सकते हैं. सो इन्फ्लेशन बिकॉज हाई लेवल पे चल रही है, तो दिस इज वेरी मच पॉसिबल. सो रेट कट करना तो अभी एनी टाइम सूनर इट इज नॉट looking to be a possibility. So if it starts cutting the rates before these banks do, so there's the risk कि money जो इंडिया में आया, फॉरेन इन्वेस्टर्स ने अपना पैसा इंडिया में लगाया, वो इंडिया से बाहर मूव आउट कर देंगे अगर हम रेपो रेट को रिड्यूस करना स्टार्ट कर देंगे. तो उसकी वजह से अगेन और चीजें वॉलेटाइल हो जाएंगी, बहुत ज्यादा मिक्सड अप एंड कॉम्प्लेक्स सिचुएशन क्रिएट हो जाएगी. So RBI governor का कहना क्या है? We will have to go beyond Arjuna's eye and act quickly. If the spiraling vegetable prices, they become more widespread and they become generalized, forcing us to deploy any appropriate tool under our command to tame it, and that it may not just be a rate hike. मतलब सिर्फ रेट हाइक तक ही हम रिस्ट्रिक्टेड नहीं रहेंगे. अगर वेजिटेबल प्राइसेस इंक्रीज जो हो रहे हैं, अगर वो जनरल सिचुएशन बन गई, कॉमन सिचुएशन बन गई आने वाले टाइम में, तो रेपो रेट से ही खाली हम उसको टैकल नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि ऑब्वियसली डायरेक्ट इम्पैक्ट नहीं होता है इंक्रीज ऑफ रेपो रेट हाइक ऑन द वेजिटेबल प्राइसेस, बट देन इट इज बीइंग सेड एंड बिलीव्ड कि दे वुड हैव टू एक्सप्लोर मच मोर टूल्स एंड इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स टू टैकल स्पेसिफिकली फूड इन्फ्लेशन. Coming to Financial Express newspaper, so let's see important topics again. RBI का long pause ahead, this is what we expect. Inflation forecast increase किया गया, CRR incremental CRR maintain करना पड़ेगा from 12th of August. So ये भी कहीं ना कहीं banks के ऊपर pressure add up कर रहा है. So bringing the headline inflation within the tolerance band is not enough. We need to remain firmly focused on aligning inflation to the target of 4%. मतलब खाली headline inflation की बात नहीं है, overall inflation को भी आपको target level के पास लेके आना important है. So India is uniquely positioned to grow faster. So कौन से ऐसे factors हैं जहाँ से आपको पता लगता है कि we are uniquely positioned? That is important. So global economy is struggling, no doubt. India is uniquely positioned to be optimistic and positive about its future growth. And participating in the debate in the no confidence motion, the finance minister said that in 2013, Morgan Stanley, it called India a fragile economy. So some Morgan Stanley, it has upgraded India just in 9 years. So fragile economy came out because of our government's policy. So not just government's policy, even the impact of monetary policy, fiscal policy, दोनों की हम बात करेंगे. So India is the fastest growing economy despite disruptions due to the pandemic. So tomato prices, so already they are at high level. Onion prices have also started to spike. प्रोडक्शन पैटर्न की हम यहाँ बात करें, महाराष्ट्र में सबसे लार्जेस्ट अमाउंट ऑफ आउटपुट हमें मिलता है ऑफ ऑनियन, देन मध्य प्रदेश, कर्नाटका are the major producers. So 2022-23 crop year is from July to June. Decline हुआ है, but marginal decline देखा गया, इतना कोई massive decline नहीं हुआ है. And we have also exported some amount to countries like Bangladesh, Malaysia, UAE, Sri Lanka. So again, prices को control करने के लिए export ban impose किया गया है. So क्या measures लिए जा सकते हैं to control the prices of basically food inflation की अगर हम बात करें overall. So central it can soon जो भी उनके पास surplus amount of goods and the food grains maintained है वो आप open market में sale कर सकते हो. Export ban another measure. And ऑनियन एक्सपोर्ट्स पे बैन अभी ऐसा कुछ हमने नहीं लगाया है, बट टमाटो पे डेफिनेटली देयर हैज बीन इम्पोज्ड, व्हीट पे एंड राइस पे स्पेसिफिकली वी हैव इम्पोज्ड बैन ऑन देयर एक्सपोर्ट्स. सो फ्यूचर में अगर आप एक्सपोर्ट्स बैन नहीं करोगे बट यू इंश्योर कि इंपोर्ट करोगे ऑनियंस का, सो दैट यू हैव एडिक्वेट अमाउंट ऑफ सप्लाई, दैट इज आल्सो गोइंग टू बी वन ऑफ द पॉसिबिलिटीज. So direct benefit transfer, around 2.7 trillion rupees have been saved. So it became operationalized 2013-14 में we had it, and 5 times जो amount transfer किया गया है वो increase हुआ by 5 times. So जो भी leakages देखी जाती थी welfare programs में, it allowed the government to save around 2.7 trillion rupees. So जो efficiency है of schemes financial terms में अगर हम बात करें, so that is improved massively through DBT. So private projects say we are getting signals of new capital expenditure cycle. So even that is also, we can say, one of the factors. Private sector's investment is also one of the factors behind India's unique position globally. So increase in the capital goods imports and overseas borrowings by India Inc. coupled with high capacity utilization levels in a host of industries like metals and cement, it is indicating slow revival of the private capital expenditure cycle. So new projects have been announced by the private sector. It has increased substantially since the third quarter of the last fiscal. And this is still to reflect on the project implementation. Now, main जो focus रहेगा on the implementation of the projects. So banks are turning cautious on lending to the small businesses. So they are cautious in providing loans to MSME segment despite high demand and availability of analytical data. The proper data analysis के बाद भी demand भी high है, and उसके बाद भी banks they still remain cautious. So MSME sector से the demand for loans grew by 33%, and supply to them is also increased by 11%. मतलब इसमें यहाँ पे gap exist करते हैं, तो why, like despite having the data proper analysis के बाद भी banks they remain cautious of lending to MSMEs. So priority sector lending की आप बात कर सकते हो. What are the provisions under that for the MSME credit giving exercise to them? So even जो unpaid loans थे at the MSME, तो वो भी हमें improvement देखने को मिली है. So जो bridge करना हमारे लिए important है, demand supply gap, that is a priority call to action for the lenders. मतलब demand of loans from the MSME ज़्यादा है, जितना supply किया जा रहा है by the banks that is less. Coming to Indian Express newspaper. The contribution of women to India's growth and development. An important topic ऐसे में आ सकता है. So women personalities, their important contributions from different domains can be taken up by you. And even women's contribution to our freedom struggle is very important. Then आप tribal women's के बारे में बात करोगे, their contribution is important. And you can take a few case studies you can find out about and search about proper case studies of even self-help groups, how the women-driven self-help groups have played important role. But democracy works best in the environment of pluralism, according to Narayan Murthy. So again, इसको अगर आप objectively देखोगे, you'll think about कि how democracy basically functioned या क्या impact रहा during the times जहाँ पे we were not seeing elements of pluralism functioning या unilateralism overpower कर रहा था, compared to the times when we were seeing कि we had a strong and a healthy pluralistic environment functioning. So how it basically strengthened the democracy. So you can think about certain examples भी अगर आप different domains से सोचोगे, so that can help you. तो आप कंटेनर कॉर्पोरेशन ऑफ इंडिया के बारे में सर्च करोगे, इट इज अ नवरत्न अंडरटेकिंग ऑफ गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया. सो यू नीड टू हैव अ बेसिक आइडिया कि एक्चुअली है क्या. सो एडवर्टाइजमेंट्स अगेन आप इनको नहीं स्किप कर सकते हो, दे आर वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट स्पेसिफिकली फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ प्रीलिम्स. So government says कि disclaimer is must for endorsing the health products. मतलब यहाँ पे आप सेलिब्रिटी के द्वारा जो endorsements देखते हो, so disclaimer is very important. And the move is to ensure कि audiences does not see endorsements as substitutes for the professional medical advice, diagnosis or treatment. तो इसलिए disclaimer is important, because when we talk about the social media and the growing impact of the influencers and the celebrities, so that is important for ensuring consumer welfare. So violations, it may lead to penalties under the Consumer Protection Act and other relevant provisions. Then General Insurance Corporation of India, again, this is an important body. इसके बारे में आप find out करोगे. You can see gross premium, net worth, solvency ratio सब mentioned है. So this is going to be the first foreign university जो इंडिया में अपना campus set up करने वाले हैं. This would be at Gujarat's GIFT City. So this is a university from Australia, the Deakin University campus at Gujarat's GIFT City. It will admit students from the next June. So higher education में so far we were seeing कि अभी तक कोई ऐसी फॉरेन यूनिवर्सिटी का कैंपस इंडिया में आज तक एस्टैब्लिश नहीं हुआ है. सो दैट इज रिक्वायर्ड, क्योंकि कहीं ना कहीं यू कांट सी एजुकेशन इज अ प्रॉफिट मेकिंग बिजनेस. सो न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी के बारे में यू कैन अगेन उसका क्रिटिकल एनालिसिस भी इम्पोर्टेंट है. सो दिस इज फॉर द स्टेप अंडर दैट पॉलिसी फॉर प्रमोशन ऑफ हायर एजुकेशन. So as we were seeing कि जो सिलेक्शन कमेटी है और द अपॉइंटमेंट कमेटी ऑफ द चीफ इलेक्शन कमिश्नर एंड अदर इलेक्शन कमिश्नर्स उसमें बोला जा रहा है कि CJ would be replaced by cabinet minister, leader of opposition रहेंगे and prime minister would be the member. So एक negative aspect हम देख चुके हैं जो concern है because of this कि independent autonomy of Election Commission of India would come under question because all the members जो हैं of the committee, of the selection committee, they are somewhat political. So that is a negative concern, but अगर हम उसका positive impact की बात करें, so it will be more effective if the decisions they are unanimous. So maintaining election commission's institutional autonomy, that is urgent in the current national international context में definitely that cannot be compromised at any cost, and there has been increasing global erosion of trust in the electoral institutions. Not just we are talking about the level of India, globally we are seeing erosion of trust in the electoral institutions. चाहे आप अभी recently बात करो नाइजीरिया में जो हमने coup देखा military coup, there is also an indication of similar thing. So according to the Gallup World Poll, we see 50% of the voters, they have reported to have confidence in the honesty of elections, while in USA, the figure in 2019 stood at only 40%. So even less than 50%. So India may over the past few years, Election Commission's credibility, that is also increasingly being called into question. चाहे आप बात करो the impact of MCC या criminalization of politics, with the allegations of bias in the scheduling of the elections, arbitrary deletion of the names of the registered voters, ignoring the blatant violations of the model code of conduct. So ये कुछ concerns हैं in the context of the functioning of the Election Commission of India and obviously the actions that have been taken by it. So Election Commission of India, it has for long been a shining symbol of democracy all over the world. And to consolidate this reputation, we must ensure that all the safeguards they are in place to quell the possibility of any question mark on its credibility and the status. So जो भी proposed change है, it would be the author feels that it is going to be more credible if unanimously तरीके से verdict and decisions लिए गए हैं added as a precondition to the appointment. So मतलब unanimous decisions लेना फिर important हो जाएगा. Will it amount to giving veto power to the leader of opposition? Not at all. अगर choices limited हैं to the 5 candidates जो shortlist किए गए by the cabinet secretary led committee, so it can be safely presumed कि जो committee है it would not spring a surprise on the prime minister by proposing an offensive name. However, जो clause है that the selection committee can choose anyone from outside the shortlist, that is absolutely undesirable and makes a mockery of the shortlisting committee. तो फिर मतलब committee होने का फायदा ही क्या हुआ अगर आप जो recommended names है उनके बाहर भी किसी को choose कर सकते हैं the chief election commissioner. So only one extremely important provision in the bill is that it seeks to protect the 2 election commissioners from removal, bringing them on par with chief election commissioner. So they can be removed through a process of impeachment like a Supreme Court judge. So this has been a demand for 2 decades. So ये एक long pending reform था because again कहीं ना कहीं जो उनकी पोजीशन है या वे ऑफ फंक्शनिंग है उस पर भी इम्पैक्ट होता है अकॉर्डिंग टू द मैनर इन विच दे कैन बी रिमूव्ड फ्रॉम देयर पोजीशन. तो अगर उसको आप थोड़ा फेयर एंड जस्ट एंड ऑब्जेक्टिव यू विल कीप इट ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ देयर परफॉर्मेंस ओनली, तो दे वुड बी एबल टू फंक्शन इन अ मच मोर इंडिपेंडेंट मैनर. तो आरबीआई पॉलिसी की हम प्रॉपर एनालिसिस कर चुके हैं, जो स्टांस रहा, जो डिसीजन रहा, आने वाले टाइम के लिए क्या कंसर्न्स हैं, ये हम अभी जस्ट हमने डिस्कस किया है इन डिटेल. पॉजिटिव नेगेटिव्स हम देख चुके हैं. सो स्पन सिटीज क्या है, स्मार्ट सिटीज के बारे में तो हम बहुत बात करते हैं कि वो तो can we include this idea of spun city within the smart cities? So initiative this was launched in 2015 to boost the flood resilience in major cities. So ये China में एक model है of spun city. Obviously we are seeing rising incidences of urban floods, so वहाँ पे we can basically implement this idea, make better use of rainwater through architectural, engineering and infrastructural tweaks. So solution included use of permeable asphalt, the construction of canals and ponds, and restoration of wetlands, which would ease the waterlogging. So they would be basically acting like a sponge, which can easily absorb the water and prevent urban floods. So massive urbanization जो हमें देखने को मिल रहा है, it has encased vast stretches of land in the impermeable concretization जो हमें देखने को मिल रहा है. तो obviously water is not able to easily seep into the ground. So it is important to, keep this in mind when we are talking about infrastructural development in cities. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us in today's analysis video. I hope the topics are clear. And if any doubt, again, you can get back to us. You can comment them in the comment section. And do subscribe to the channel and also like this video. So thank you so much.